Okay, I think we'll get started, Carly. Thank you everyone for joining today. My name is David Milano. I'm the CEO of Realtek here in Malvern, PA. And thank you for joining the webinar. And today's discussion is on managing your in-flight SAP projects during your digital transformations. Today's agenda will be tell you a little bit about who we are, Realtek as a company, talk about some digital transformation scenarios, how SAP customers are have the option to move to S/4HANA, also some of the different scenarios that are available to them, whether it's a greenfield, a brownfield, we call it an all-field, selective data transfer. There's a couple different options that customers have today. And then we'll talk a little bit about the challenges for SAP change management during the digital transformation projects. And Realtek has some proprietary software that we will discuss that helps clients manage these in-flight changes because, as we know, customers can't just stop doing their projects that have been going for 3, 6, 9 months, changing their production systems to help the business, right? So business can't stop. Then we'll talk a little bit about some best practices for your digital transformation project from an SAP change management standpoint. And then we will show you our software, a live demo of our software, how it works, how we can help SAP clients today who are doing digital transformation projects, because if they're not doing them now, they will be doing them in 2021 or 2022 or 2023 based on SAP's advice that all customers should move to S/4HANA. So a little bit about who Realtek is. We are the trusted change and transport automation software solution, but we also are SAP migration experts. We have performed over 1,000 SAP migrations since 1994 worldwide, and we also are basis experts. So we help our customers not only optimize their SAP landscapes from a basis perspective or a technical perspective, but we're also helping them move to on-premise to the cloud, right, to Microsoft Azure, AWS, Google Cloud Platform, move SAP, lift and shift SAP from one platform to another to help them optimize their SAP investments. And in doing those type of projects, migration projects, there's a lot of risk, right? Especially moving an SAP production system, let's say from Unix and Oracle over to Microsoft Azure and SQL Server. But Realtek has been doing those types of projects since 1994, along with our software called Smart Change. And Smart Change is what I like to say an automation approvals and auditing platform, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But we're based out of Malvern, PA, close to SAP headquarters in Newtown Square. We have 2,000 worldwide customers, offices in US, Germany, New Zealand, and Japan. The US operations I purchased back in 2017. So we are a channel partner reseller of the software in Realtek AG, but have a real good trusted relationship with Germany for over 15 years. I've been with the company 15 years and really have a close relationship with Germany. So we rely on each other to push the software solutions out to the market and to really help our customers optimize SAP. Trusted partnership with SAP for over 25 years. Like I said, they're right around the block. We have meetings there. We have monthly meetings with them and have a close partnership. Our software is certified for S/4HANA, right? So one thing we did was we went and got our software certified by SAP so that for all our customers globally, when they move there, they can be assured that our software is going to work in the S/4HANA platform. So let's talk about a couple different digital transformation options that customers have today. And most SAP clients are aware of these choices. I like to start off by just giving some education on what's out there today. And there's actually another option than this, but new implementation of S/4HANA from their ECC environment, depending on how long their ECC environment has been used. If it's a 20-year system, there could be a lot of custom code that or customizations that the client has done, and maybe they don't use them no more. Maybe they don't even know what's in their systems because it's been so highly customized, and developers have come and gone throughout those years. So some customers really choose to just start new with a whole new S4 environment, and then go with the standard that SAP has put in that S4 system. The second option is really doing a system conversion. So really converting or a migration conversion from ECC to either Suite on HANA or S4HANA. And depending on that choice, it could be a migration. There is some custom code remediation that has to happen when you move from ECC to S4. But we're seeing a lot of customers now really just do that ECC to Suite on HANA move, because you're still going to get the advantages of the HANA database, whereas you don't have to do a full S4 migration. You can do it in steps, right? And sometimes the business says, hey, look, we want the in-memory database of HANA, but we're not really sure about, the new features, the new functions that's coming with S4, and we really have to sell the business from a technical standpoint on doing such a big move. So eventually you have to do it, but this is another option. You can do a new implementation, a system conversion, or you can do a landscape transformation, right? So that's where you're really taking some systems, multiple ECC systems, and putting them all into one S4 system. And it is a little bit complex. The other option that isn't listed here, and we have a partnership with a company called Natuvian, and they have a selective data transfer, which is a whole new way of just carving out some of the data that you want to keep and putting it in your new S4 system with a solution called SDT from Natuvian. So we're the delivery team. We help Natuvian deliver on those projects, but we're seeing that become a very desirable option for clients that don't want to do either of these three options. They really just want to carve out maybe 5 years of data that they have in their ECC system and then move it into the S4 environment. So going from that point, and the options you have when you do your digital transformation, some key decision points to consider even before you start your project, right? And there is so many other key points, but one of them that's very important is really your SAP change management, right? What is our game plan for our change management? And the processes we have today, can we use them when we move to the new environment? Or how are we going to manage the existing projects that we have going on during our transformation, right? How is this going to change after we move to S4? Do we have to reconfigure some stuff? Are the manual processes that we're doing today, are they sufficient enough? And they're going to be more complex when we move to S4, right? You're going to have code freeze periods during your go lives that need to be considered. How are we going to get emergencies through? How are we going to approve these changes? Some key things to consider. We're going to have to build a dual landscape, and that adds complexity. So how are we going to be able to manage those changes from our production support path or our ECC path and get those changes down to our S4 path if we want to move them down there. And if we do, is it double the work, right? Do we have developers cutting and pasting from one development to system to another? How do we reduce that complexity? And then through all this, you still have to be compliant with your audits, right? So everything has to be tracked and logged. If something's moving into production, it can't be the same person who released it, tested it in quality. Your audit processes still have to be intact. And then is there anything out there that can really help us streamline this? And that's sort of what we're discussing today. So we have an example here of basically an energy company that proposed this question to us, right? How can we address this challenge? And basically, we're going to have projects that are moving through our upper landscape, and we need to ensure that they're either copied down to the secondary landscape or retrofits happen, but we don't want to do any of this manually because we can't stop doing our work. We're going to have ongoing projects throughout the whole 8 months, 12 months, could be 24-month project. And we don't want to do it with spreadsheets. We don't want to do it with emails. We don't want to have the basis team pushing in transports for this stuff. And everything has to be sort of coordinated, because if you're moving 500 transports from one system to another before a go live, if something that goes out of order, so things can be overwritten. If it's not tracked, auditors will come in. If you miss a transport, there could be a lot of manual steps or manual human errors in the process without doing it automatically, right? And everything today, automation is key, right? You want to speed things up so that the business doesn't have to wait and they can still get their changes into production and be more agile, right? The DevOps process is what everybody's going towards. But here's a real life example of a customer who basically has the same challenge that all SAP customers will have. And our software really fits that gap, right? Our Smart Change software, which we'll talk about, there's a transport management component and a synchronization management component. The software's been around since 1994, used by over 200 companies such as Microsoft, Eli Lilly, Paramount Pictures, multiple chemical companies that rely on our software day in and day out, and it's solid as a rock. You put it in, it works, it does what it's supposed to do, and it really scales back the basis need of doing changes or managing transports. Everything is built in a centralized system where everything is tracked and logged, and automation happens with the imports, the emails, approvals happen directly inside of our workflow. And then the auditing component, it's really a one-click auditing, or we have like sort of a filter option where you can filter on multiple transports and changes that are moving through your environment. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. So really, how can we help, right? So on the release of a change, basically you would see this screen here. I'll show you this during the demonstration, but this is called the transport management body screen, and it has selected projects and destinations that are built by you, the client, according to your business. So in this example, you can see maybe we have some projects for Bausch, right? Maybe project one is an Asia Pacific project, maybe project two is a Latin American project. But on the release point, you're able to select where you want those transports to go. And then the tool really handles the rest of delivering the transports into the associated systems, the quality into the respective production system. So in this example here, you can see that I have, when it goes to quality, I need one approval, right? But when it goes to production, I need 2 levels of approval. Maybe it's a functional manager, and then maybe the cab approves that final approval before it goes into production. But everything is really managed. And in this example, I have it as a solution manager, but it doesn't have to be solution manager. Any NetWeaver system would work. But what we do is we put our software on that centralized system. It's connected to all the SAP environments, and then everything gets managed directly from that solution manager or the NetWeaver controller. And that's where everybody makes the approvals, all the imports. We schedule jobs directly on the target systems to push the transports into the system. All the emails really get sent out from this system. So everybody has a centralized dashboard. You can imagine, I think Microsoft has about 79 systems connected to one centralized controller. So they have multiple different landscapes connected, and we're managing their whole SAP change and release management process. But in this example, you might have an ECC transport or change that's happening during your digital transformation, and you want to move that down into your S/4HANA development system and continue on this path. With our transport management tools, it's very simple to do that. And then with our synchronization management, you're really going to be able to retrofit those objects between your Dev 1 and Dev 2 environments to make it really easy. So that way, the developers are working on the same version of the object when they go to production, and they won't overwrite anything. So that's sort of one example. Maybe another example is you have ECC in different regions, in the Asia Pac region or the North American region, and you're taking these environments and really putting them in one S4 system. And it's the same example where our software really streamlines the management and the headache of doing all these changes and moving the transports via spreadsheets, emails, basis people, and you can have everything tracked and logged within one central dashboard of our environment. So this is just another example of with multiple ECC environments going to an S4 landscape. So let's talk a little bit about our software. I did tell you a little bit about transport management and synchronization management, but there is a change management process module that would sit on top of transport management, and this is really what Microsoft uses, that they define their processes in some templates in a Java-based application that connects via web services into the SAP application. And also these two modules are ABAP. So they're an SAP package solution that gets put into SAP via some transports. We create an RFC and a user, create what we call the projects and destinations, and literally you're using the software in 2 or 3 days. Whereas some of our competitor software might take months, weeks and months to really get to work, and you still have to pay a consultant to come in and customize it the way that your process, your process works today. With our software, we come with already predefined templates. You put the transports into the system, do the configuration, and literally you're up and running within a couple of days with our solution. So some of the key features, right? I say centralized in Solution Manager because we need a centralized dashboard. Our security is very simple, a single authorization object, independent of system or release. We say NetWeaver 7.0 and above, we're good to go. And I mentioned earlier, we're certified for S/4HANA. So NetWeaver 7.3 to 7.5, is a perfect, sweet spot for us. Flexible approval workflows. Maybe you want one project destination that has one approval or 2 approvals, and then you have another project destination, you need 5 approvals. It's very easy drag and drop technology within SAP where you create those workflows, and once they're up and running, they're set it and forget it. They just run, right? It's very flexible, easy to use from an administration standpoint. You don't have to add resources to support the software. You can literally set the software up, it runs, and you're able to reallocate those basis team members or change coordinators or transport coordinators to really managing the process versus managing the technical side of the operations of doing the changes. transports. Scalable or simple, for simple or complex environments. We have customers with 2 landscapes that use our software. And I mentioned we have Microsoft with 79 systems or Kimberly-Clark with 40 landscapes using our software. So small, medium, or large, we're a good fit for any SAP client. Some of the technical features within the solution, you're able to, let's say, predetermine return codes before they happen within our software. So you can highlight a couple transports, let's say, select return code forecasting, and check dependencies within those transports and changes before they go into the system and see if anything's missing. And if it is missing, you're able to drill down even further and see that, hey, this object is in this transport, and this has to go into the system as well to have a successful return code. Packages or bundling of transports. You could bundle transports, and let's say you have 500 transports that have to go in the system. You could create a package. It's one approval for all 500. They go in the correct order into the system, which is the default order is the way it's released from dev is the way it goes into the QA or production system. Cross-system object locking for those dual maintenance environments. Dependencies, predecessor, successor, companion relationships. Of course, collisions, overtaker detection, critical object checking, and really tracking information down to that object level. We get very granular with, hey, this transport's moved through, it has this object, but it also moved through with these other 2 transports, date and time, and everything you can see from a centralized point of view. So some of the other key features, the automatic imports, emails at the appropriate time, complete history for auditing and reporting. We have a customer that was very manual with this transport management process. When I say manual, they had pieces of paper that would get signed and moved around to the manager, then back to basis. After they implemented our tool, they said their auditing process went from a 2-hour auditing process to go track everything, go get the logs, find all these papers with the signatures, down to literally 15 minutes, where they get the list of transports, they go into our tool, put in that list, and they have everything they need for an auditor. And it's down from the import history to the action log, to the return codes, to who approves, all the way through from beginning to end. So top-down visibility and transparency throughout the process. Talked a little bit about this. We bring instant value, right, while increasing automation. Our solution is really focused on the DevOps methodology, right? Being agile, being helping the business move changes faster while lowering risk to your production systems. All those key advantages we bring with just a package solution and installing our product right away within you see value. We provide the technical checks and balances. We reduce the risk. We get rid of all your existing spreadsheets, emails, reducing cost and overhead. Your CAB meetings are very streamlined, right? So when you're doing your digital transformation projects and you have all these changes and transports that are moving, really everybody brings their computer to their meeting, logs into our dashboard, and you can see in a certain section and area all those changes that need to be moved within that week or within that go live. Everybody can approve them all at once from a CAB's point of view or the change approval board point of view, and then the automatic job will push them in at 7 o'clock at night if you schedule it at that time. So it's very flexible, very easy to use, easy to administer. And it really can decrease the amount of SAP changes moving to production with a transport of copies function that we have as well that we support, where you can just do transport of copies into the QA system and then only move that final change from dev to QA into your production environment. So with that, I'll just do a quick demonstration of how the software works. 1 second. Okay. So now I'm in my SAP development system. So I have 3 environments, EDV, EQA, and EDT as my production. And what I'm going to do is just release a simple transport with no object. Just a test. So everything happens like normal from an SAP standpoint. If you're pre-release, so you would attach objects, do your customizations, do your development, SE80. But when you're ready to release, you release the task. And then nothing happens. But when you release the transport request, here's where Realtek comes into the picture. The first box and pop-up, you're able to add some criteria. In this example, I wanted to say this was an incident or change, maybe. Maybe it's an incident for ServiceNow, and I put the number in. What type of priority is it? Maybe it's high, medium, or low. Maybe this is just a medium. And then what type of subtype? What kind of category is it? Is it a configuration error? Am I applying a note? It's a configuration. Let's just say it's configuration. And then you're also on the back end able to make these selections mandatory. In my case, they're not, but on a back end table, you can just make sure there's a checkbox. And the developer would have to fill this information out before they release the transport to get to the next step. So now I released that part of it, and here is where the body comes into play. It's really the project destination combination I was discussing earlier, where let's just consider these different types of classifications, or let's say buckets that you can release into, and they will assign the transport on its path from dev to quality to production into the systems they go to. Also, maybe there's some additional attributes that are needed with the transport. Maybe we call them additional information. Maybe you want to attach something or have a link to ServiceNow or BMC, or maybe just a question answer. Was it tested successfully? You're able to apply those, what we call attributes, to the project destination combinations, and they carry through all along the process. So in this example, I'm just going to select ECC basis, release it into that project destination combination. And then what happens along the way is there's a job that runs, it gets exported by SAP standard, and we don't do anything different there. Once it's released, then you can go into our transaction, which is /n/RTC/TM, since we live inside our own namespace. And this is our dashboard. Inside our main screen, there's a waiting for approvals button, a monitor button, and a history button. The waiting for approvals is anybody who makes approvals inside of our tool would see transports under there. The monitor section is for transports across all your landscapes. So I'm just going to go into the monitor section. The history section is for after it moves into production, you can move it to history, and it would be archived there forever. So on the left side, you'll see what we call transport levels. I have a quality and production transport level. When I release the transport, I set it automatically for no signature in the quality, but of course you can have approval steps in the quality with our solution. So there's the transport that I released. It's sitting in our dashboard, waiting to be imported into the quality section. If I double click on it, I can get more information about it. Maybe I can see the action log, what exactly happened, date and time, all the information so far. If I go into the approvals tab, I can see who the user groups are. If I had a user groups assigned, who is waiting to approve this. In this example, in the quality, the system did the automatic approval because it dropped it into current, and it's waiting to be imported into the system. So as a basis person, I really could just set a job, and it'll run into the system. on a 15-minute basis. In this example, I'm going to go ahead and push it in. So I drop down what we call the system queue, I generate the system queue, and then we have some transports that are sitting in my current environment waiting to be imported. So as a manual step, you can just push it in. So we don't ever stop you from doing transports or changes, right? We don't rip out or replace SDMS. We don't change your transport routes. The only thing we use underneath is TP and R3 trans to really perform the imports into the system. So that was imported into the system. You can see I got the return codes. When you're doing your digital transformation project, you can set up different levels here. So one level might be your S4 path for quality and production, and this top level would be your ECC path. So everything would be managed directly for your SAP change management within our system. So that got imported into the system. Next step would be to move it down to this production level. An automatic job would do that, but I just did it manually. It's sitting in the queue environment. What this status really means is it's in quality already. It's waiting to be tested, but it's not quite ready for its approval steps into quality. So if I double click on it, I get more information. You know, it went into quality. Here's the return code, date and time. Now let's say it's tested and I'm ready for it to move for its final approvals. One thing I wanted to point out is everything I filled out on the beginning when I released the transport is tracked and logged underneath these attributes here. So you can see I put that number in, it was new configuration. So this is a great example of during your project, you have all your project changes tied to one change request, maybe in a different ServiceNow, BMC Remedy, Jira, whatever outside change management application you're using. It's very simple to go in and just run a filter on that number, let's say, that's tracking all these changes. And say you have 50 transports tied to this number. You would just run a filter within our tool and you get the list of all those changes. So very simple, very easy to manage, at your fingertips, just to find information very quickly. And the feedback we get is that our solution looks like SAP. It's very easy to train users on. It doesn't take weeks of training. Literally, when we roll out the software, it's an hour training session because we're taking your existing process you're doing today and just automating it in our solution. So let's say it's ready for its final approvals. I've done everything. It's been tested successfully. I'm able to then send it down to the signature area. And in this case, I'm an administrator. I can do all the steps, but it would go to the first approver, might be the functional manager, maybe the FICO manager or the basis manager, depending on what project you're using, or maybe the project manager of the digital transformation project that's managing all these changes, that needs to know what's happening within these systems. We can set up user groups tied to the project destinations, and that's how the workflow is really built within our tool. So I'm a first approver. I'll make a content approval. It checks for collisions, if there's any technical issues. If not, it would send an email then to the technical approver. They make that approver approve all. It drops down to the current status, and it waits to be imported just like it was inside of the production system, the quality system. So let's say I want to run a quick report and see exactly what happened. I'm just choosing a different one for an example. But in this case, I can run a quick report and export this out for an auditor. It has the object list, the action log, some import history. I was having some production system issues there. Any attributes, but also any of the TM attributes that are selected. Maybe I had an attachment or a free text with a hot link to ServiceNow or Jira or I had a question here. Was it tested successfully? Yes or no? So very flexible and easy to configure that type of attributes within our tool, and then they're added to the project destination, and you know they get ported all the way through until the transport gets into the production system and then into the archiving section. So that's just a quick look inside of the transport management module. I'd like to give a quick look into our synchronization management module. And the difference between the two modules is, let's say transport management is the transport tool, manages the transports, the workflow, the approvals, emails, the automation, putting it into the system. This tool is more, I would say, is a developer's tool that manages at the object level. So it's based on pairs of systems, so you can do retrofits. So today I went and I created a transport or a change that had some objects on it in my EDV environment, which would be my Dev 1 system or my maintenance system / production support system. And the development or project system might be my RD2 environment. Right? So here I created a transport and had a function module, a package, a package, a function group, and then a function module. And what I did here was I released this from my EDV environment, and I want to be able to retrofit it down to my RD2 environment. So as a developer today, without a tool like this, they're doing this all manually, right? You're looking at releasing the transport from your Dev 1 system. Now you got to cut and paste, say 1,000 lines of code from your Dev 1 down to your Dev 2, and you miss something, and now it doesn't test right, and you got problems. There's a lot of room for error, right? Human error when you're doing this kind of stuff. With our tool, for a developer standpoint, we take all that out. The tool looks at what is being released from your Dev 1 system and compares to the active version of your Dev 2 environment. So in this case, I released it from EDV. If I went and selected an object and looked at my object comparison screen, I'm sorry about this here. If I looked at my object comparison screen, you can see it's not on my dev system. What I'm saying here is it's not on my RD2 system at all, right? And over on the right side, the tool is actually giving you there's a truck over on the right side that tells you that it's okay to do this retrofit. You want to retrofit down. You see the version, the object, the classes, what type of package, all the information about it. So if I want to do that, really, I want to go ahead and create what we call a rollout request. And I can just retrofit for transport number, whatever the transport number is. Save it. Okay, now I want to go ahead and take that object and just drag and drop over. I'm sorry. I got to create what we call a sync request first. Once I create the sync request, this is really a transport of copies from the EDV environment over to the RD2 environment. Right? I drag and drop the object over, go ahead and perform the import. Oh, sorry. See here, bear with me 1 second. There's some dev routes that we rely on there. Okay, so now I'm able to go ahead. It's asking me for some UMODs. It's telling me layers not defined. But basically, what it does is it does a transport of copies from your EDV environment over to your RD2 and makes it equal, right? I'm having some technical lab challenges with a license. That's why it's not doing it. But the solution is basically that this solution handles retrofits and object comparisons versus the transport management tool, which handles the transports and moving them through the environments. The solutions themselves are both independent modules. They have their own RFCs, their own user. They don't rely on each other, but together integrated with a process that you've been using for several years, we can integrate that process into these solutions and really help you manage those digital transformation projects that are happening within your environments, or when you move to Suite on HANA or S/4HANA. This will really help you organize everything and make sure that you're not doing it manual no more. So with that, I just have a couple more slides, and then I can open up to questions and give you a couple minutes back today. So, so what is the best practice, right? So what we've learned from our projects and talking to our clients who are doing these projects with our software is really proper planning is key, right? And to really automate as much as possible. Consider the processes you have today, you know, where there'll be more management needed during your project. And also you're going to have to do retrofits. You're going to have to move objects from one landscape to another. And how are you going to do that, right? There is some SAP standard tools that do it, but they're rigid, they're complex, they're hard to configure. And if you need to add that new environment that you just built into some of those other applications, it requires an administrator. With our tool, it's literally drag and drop. A dual maintenance landscape is coming, so consider a solution that lowers your risk, that has proactive technical checks before the transports get imported into the systems. It's also easy to implement and administer. I think throughout the webinar, I stressed a couple key points, which were flexible, ease of use, ease of administration. Implement a one-stop shop for compliance and auditing. Your auditors will thank you. We've heard this several times. Our solution really helps at the end of the day when after your project or in the middle of your project, you're audited for changes that went into production. It really streamlines and helps the change managers, the transport coordinators, the basis team, the development team, really gives them self-service to go into the solution and pull the reports they need quickly and efficiently so that they can be focused on the project itself. So with SAP's Clean Core concept, you will have more interfaces to your S/4HANA system, and you'll need a tool to manage these interfaces, right? We also have some other solutions. We have an interface management solution that you can manage those interfaces. If there's problems, you can monitor, detect those interfaces, and you can also automatically fix those interfaces. So Realtek has a suite of products that we've built over our SAP's 25-year partnership and experience, specifically focused around SAP Change Management, Interface Management, ITSM solutions, basically pulling data from an SAP system like Solution Manager and putting it into our software. If you wanted to get rid of maybe some of the standard SAP solutions, like solution documentation, you wanted to pull that out and put it into a Realtek solution for our tool. But with that, how do you get started, right? So we have a couple different flexible, what we think really easy ways to get started, and very cost-efficient way for your company, so you don't have to go spend $100,000 to use our software, right? We have a software as a service plan. There's a free plan for up to 3 SIDs where you can demo, test, train our software. We want you guys to use it, right? Try it. We know you'll see value as soon as it's in your environments and you're using the software. And then a basic plan. We're per SID per month. So if you have 3 environments, it's $300 a month. So very simple, very easy way to get started with our software. We know, again, once it's installed, you're going to love the automation, love the value it gives, not only the basis team, but also the development team, where they're able to go in and track their changes, not have to send emails. From a transport coordinator standpoint, they see everything. So there's a couple different ways to get started. We'd love to talk to you more about this. We have a white paper that we're going to send out to everybody on the webinar today. And with that, I'll open it up to questions, and feel free to unmute. And if you have a question or two, I'd be happy to answer it. Okay. Well, we'll follow up with everyone on the webinar. I really appreciate your time today. I hope you found it educational and valuable for your time. And we'll be reaching out to send you the white paper and to talk to you a little bit more about our solution. So thank you for attending today, and everyone have a great rest of your day.